Hey everyone, welcome to our fourth edition of the AI Factor. It's our AI based monthly webinar. Today we're going to be talking about you know AI adoption. A lot of it's going to be focused around Copilot, and just because we're going to talk about Copilot a lot doesn't mean that these things don't apply to if your company is using Gemini or if you are using ChatGPT in your environment. We're going to be talking really from a structural point and applying it into a Copilot universe, which is what 90% of businesses use. But the concepts still apply. So think about what we're thinking about in your environment. And at the end, we'll talk about how we're moving forward with our clients, getting their Copilot set up. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the in the question section here or chat section. Becca, who is with the amshot, she's going to be monitoring that section. And do really want to be practical today. So that's the concept. With us today, we've got this is our agenda. Uh, you know, we're excited that everybody's here, and we are going to talk a little bit about what can go wrong if you have an AI that's enabled to see into your environment. I'm joined today, as I often am, by my friend and colleague, Drew Dorian. He is across light mode, which is what we call our big, bullpen in the amshot offices down here in Oklahoma City. And so, Drew, thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely. I'm excited about this one, Michael. I know that you've been on the bleeding edge of AI for the better part of 3, if not 4 years. So I know this is one of your pet projects, and just really excited to help how I can, but really just learn from you and some of your exposure and experience.
Right. And, I love to think of you and I making a great team because you do the compliance work and you've been doing that for a long, long time, right?
Yeah.
And people have always thought of it as like, gosh, this is like something that we've just got to do. And, we don't want to get fined. We don't want to, have some sort of data breach. We don't want all these bad things to happen. Well, now there's this potential, and this potential is where AI can feed on really healthy data and get you the ROI you're looking for. So it's really an awesome time for IT, for MSPs, managing our clients' intelligence, and something that we haven't done before. But we've always wanted them to keep it secure. We've always been like, don't only keep the finance stuff in the finance folder. Well, now there's so much more that you get by doing those important things.
Yeah. One thing I did point out, I was thinking about this a little bit, and bringing in AI is almost like hiring an employee based on the resume with no interview or out meeting them. You just look at it, it's like, oh, it does all these cool things. Okay, yeah, tell them they can start tomorrow.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
you're
yeah.
surprised.
Here's every key to every file cabinet,
Exactly.
and you've got access to every computer in the building.
Exactly. Exactly.
All of our sensitive financial data. You've got everything, and you hired this person to be an intern,
Yeah, and no
and so
common
I love
sense.
it.
So there's that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, totally agree. The 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 secret sauce of Copilot or any agent's uh, quality and return on investment is the data quality, is what it can see. It's going to make it more accurate. It's going to help it make better decisions. You're going to trust this AI because it has good data hygiene. It knows what it needs to do, and then it knows who it can share that information with. Such important things. And, what could go wrong, right? What could go wrong if you don't have good data hygiene? So let's think of some of those things. Uh, I'll let you go with the neglecting compliance. You can take that top one.
Yeah, I think a big part of that is, with AI first, getting adopted and coming out and people getting access to it, you have to be very careful about the way you prompt stuff, very careful about the way you approach it. But more importantly, it's just like you said, Michael, you're giving this the keys to your house. And, I think when people have work done at their house, one of the first things they do is kind of walk around the house to make sure, nothing's out, nothing is open that, people need to see, that's private stuff or what have you. So all things you take in consideration, and these are the steps you have to take. And unfortunately, because you've been living in your house or living in your business for all intents and purposes for all this time, you're not the best person to probably go and look in the closet. You're not the best person to go in and check the data, because there's a lot of things working behind the scenes, from a compliance standpoint or just a data standpoint, that you're not going to be privy to just based on the trajectory and growth rate of your company. Just things that you're going to take someone who has the wherewithal to go in and look at these things and provide the recommendations and best practice surrounding the way you can be a good data steward.
Yeah.
And all the compliance aligns with that. That's what that framework is for. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Just think, having Copilot in your house would be like having a really helpful butler, that when the burglars walked in, you could just ask the butler, "Hey, where do they keep the extra cash? Where do they keep their guns? What's the gun key? What's the safe to the combination to the gun safe?" And this very helpful butler just gives the robbers where everything is, the passwords to it, how to disarm the alarm code. It's just, if you've got this superpower in your office and you don't keep it very safe, very locked down, and your environment's not ready for this, you have just allowed the bad guys guided, toured access to all of your most sensitive information. It's really incredibly powerful for us. So just think, bad guys, as soon as they get in, they've got it. So that's, the compliance piece becomes something that now on the second, the being proactive about it, if you are ready, if you are compliant, if you've been tagging your data, if you have it all organized in good hierarchies and everything makes sense, as soon as you train the agent, it has all that additional context. So all that work, if you have a very good data structure, good compliant information, good security posture, now the agent is set up for success. And so that's some of the benefits of just having a healthy environment.
Yep. We're leading with the seatbelts. We're instead of going 10 years down the road with these new motor vehicles for you to play with, out of the gate, we're saying, hey, you need to have seatbelts, because inevitably it's going to come in handy if things go off the rails.
Yeah. So bad data, these are other things besides compliance. Bad data. Bad data doesn't mean that it's wrong. It can just mean that it's too much, right? Like if you have all of your, take 15 years worth of errors and emissions contracts that you've signed and submitted and invoices and all these things, and your AI has access to it, it doesn't really know that those are things that you paid for and it's a third party contract. It's going to look at these as contracts and just be like, well, maybe this is how this business does contracts. And so it doesn't have context if you haven't checked it and put data in. And, we've all got different PowerPoints and Excel documents that we worked on for a while and they were trash and they didn't work. Well, Copilot doesn't know that. It sees or any AI doesn't know that. They see a spreadsheet. It assumes all this data is important. And so it's going to skew that combination. And so you turn it on, you ask it questions about the data that it can see, it's going to start answering them. And it's going to give you wrong answers. It's going to give you answers off data that doesn't matter. And so we're going to talk a lot about this later is, how is amshot going to prep your data? But you really do. It does. It matters what these agents can see, whether it's GPT, Gemini, Anthropic, any of these, they need good data.
All about the accuracy. I mean, you make really good points there. This is not indifferent than planning a road trip and then taking the weather forecast from last week to do your road trip. I mean, then that's really what you're dealing with. I mean, you're looking at data. You're not looking at data in such a broad spectrum, and the AI agent that you're using wants to please you. That's what they do, and they're coming and saying, "Yeah, it's it's going to be nice, clear skies, everything looks great." Well, it's real important that it was last week's data. Yeah. But you need to make sure you assign your files in such a way that you has the wherewithal to make those searches, and you can make actionable decisions based on clean data.
And so, it is important, and it's costing people money now, but they can see the magic. And so they can see the benefit to this. It is the future, right? This is how people are searching for things. Now they're not You don't go to Google and then click through multiple pages of results. You type Google, it gives you a little AI blurb, and now you're off to the races. Or if you're searching for something, you just fire up ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm looking for a good Italian restaurant in this part of the city I'm about to visit. Give me some suggestions. And Copilot or GPT or Copilot's doing that for you now. And it's really a huge dynamic shift. And companies are just doing this, right? They're throwing their data into these models, and it can help sometimes, it might not. And I've been advising, clients and friends. I'm like, I can tell you're passionate about technology. I know you. You need to be careful because you're spending a lot of time doing something that may or may not save you any time. And it's an interesting concept to think of. Am I investing my time wisely myself, building agents, trying to connect Gemini to my OneDrive or ChatGPT to my OneDrive? What are the risks of that? And so time is a really valuable issue. And the other one that you and I have seen a lot of is vendors. Vendors are coming out of the woodwork and just saying like, hey, we can get your AI going. And we've seen that blow up, and that's a big risk as well.
Yeah, we deal with that daily. I mean, you hear the term early adopter, and what a great thing it is to be an early adopter. This is not the space you want to play that game. You want to really look at people that have experience in being a data steward, and look at people that have experience in working in multiple industries, multiple verticals. That's where you're going to get your really, really good information on how to approach this in a way that is not going to cause you harm in the long term. Like Michael said, this is about building a foundation, not about, running out there to be the first one there to find out that you've taken a lot of steps to get nowhere.
And so you and I, in particularly me, we've been working on how are we going to help our clients,
Yeah.
and we spent a lot of time this quarter working on that, and we've come up with 4 pillars that you need to think about getting accomplished if you want to succeed. And you have to have a good centralized data hub. You have to have better team productivity. And if you're going to use Copilot, you want these processes that you're starting to identify, you want them to make teamwork smarter. A lot of companies they're sprinkling a little bit of AI onto the software that you buy from them. And that is helpful and it can be good. And there's some companies doing well, but you have to think about in your company, how do processes work? And it really does start with SharePoint and Teams and getting those environments ready and able to work with Copilot. And hopefully at the end of today's episode, we'll have a little bit of time and I want to demonstrate how our marketing group, how we work with an agent that we created that is trained up on our marketing and branding guidelines. It's a channel in Teams. We can all ask this expert questions about our brand. It helped us build this PowerPoint. So this is the eat your veggies part, right? Getting your data organized.
Yeah, and a big part of this too, we've talked about it, Michael, is the business analysis on the front end. Asking that question, what are you trying to accomplish? Is it feasible in my existing environment? Those are key components of that. Michael, you mentioned the vendors, and they're going to come in and say, look at all this great stuff we're doing in all these other places. Well, we have seen firsthand the complications and the continuous effort by your IT team and these groups, trying to bring to fruition what they've promised, just to find out it doesn't work in some of the areas they're trying to make it work. So, foundation is the key, and just that wherewithal to take the time to do this right.
Yeah. And kind of talking about foundation, and we're going to kind of go a little bit deep into the Microsoft sphere. We just talked about SharePoint and Teams. One of the interesting pieces of information that AI needs is context. And so what we're doing with our clients and how we're moving forward is helping people understand metadata. And so you may have heard of metadata. in regards to, hey, don't send a Word document to, opposing counsel if you're a lawyer, because it's going to have they may be able to undo a few things. They might be able to see like deleted text. They might, know what authors were working on what sections, right? So send them a flat PDF that, there's no metadata there. Well, Copilot needs metadata. It wants to have context on the type of document it's looking at. It doesn't want to have to read the subject line. It needs to know, kind of like, looking at that document, what is this document? What type of document is it? What level of security should this document have? And so we're spending time creating sensitivity labels for clients and internally at amshot, and then tags. And so some of the tags that we're talking about are client name. And so we go into the back end of your SharePoint, designate this tag, and say, apply this tag to denote which client this file is for. Another one that we look at is document type. What type of document? Is this a how-to? Is this a deposition? Is this a, medical record? What type of document it is? And then what area of the company produced it? These are all the pieces of metadata that Copilot needs to see to give you good information. It's going to also help you with compliance, and it's going to help you with data governance, managing your, how long you've kept the data, all sorts of stuff. So this is the second pillar that we're talking to our clients about, and they're like, oh, well, that makes sense. That does make sense. We do need to start working on that. We need to plan with how to organize and tag our data. And so these are things that we're working on as well. And it's
Yeah,
sensitivity labels. Yeah.
yeah. One thing that's not mentioned on here, but I know you're very aware of is the cost savings potential. Most environments that we're going to see have data, but it's data as a whole. Part of this is looking at what is production data, what can be archived, what doesn't have to be stored or saved. Data retention policies. We see storage centers all over the place where people are moving from this house to a bigger house to a smaller house. Storage centers are popping up everywhere. The same thing is happening in the cloud. And don't think that Microsoft and Amazon, all these places aren't going to continue to charge for that. So, if you're sitting on a ton of data, and it's just that's what it as is just data. We're
Yeah.
going to tell you that data needs to be separated, identified, and clearly marked, because ultimately it's going to add as technical debt, hence increasing your risk of not being compliant, or worse yet, being put in a situation where you have an outage or need that data to be recovered in some form or fashion, and you have no idea how to get it all back because you have no idea where it all sits. So all areas it can save you in the long run.
Yeah. I know you and I talk about compliance a lot, and most businesses don't have any sort of compliance that they have to stick to.
Yeah.
And, and so that's kind of what you're going on. So that's a great transition into this next slide is, do you need to be retaining documents for a certain period of time? Do you have sensitive data in your environment that needs to be, kept safe so that if someone accidentally finds it, they can't accidentally email it or send it in a Teams message or copy that data? How are you doing these things to make sure that you're compliant? But then the other end of it is they need to start just thinking of these as business policies,
Yeah.
internal policies. You know, when I started at Amshot, I had no idea that, I would be open for 15 years, and that, I would have accumulated all sorts of different how-to documents and policies and processes and spreadsheets and different vendors and folders and people that managed things in all sorts of different ways. Well, that's where I'm at. I'm at that spot, and I need to be healthy. I need to say my internal policy for retaining documents is 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. I have to make these decisions so that I'm just not data sprawling and bloating, because,
Yeah.
people think that the cloud is infinite. The cloud is just a bunch of servers in, other people's data centers. they sell them to us all as a service, and they charge more the more we use. And so
Yeah.
the more we use, the more we waste. So you have to keep this tight, and it's just a benefit. This organizational, this last pillar, that's kind of the vegetable pillar, the eating your veggies pillar, is so important on. The next is one that I'm really a huge fan of, and I'll consider this is kind of like the dressing on top of the salad.
Yeah.
And so to have a good implementation of Copilot or ChatGPT, we've learned that you need to prompt the agent. You need to say, hey, you are a this expert. I want you to respond in a this manner. Well, you can train your Copilot for your environment to respond to everyone on your team in a manner that befits your company and your culture. And so taking time to set up Copilot for this purpose and understanding what that is gets you so much more. Because when I think of AI helping people, it can help a regular AI agent, not super trained up, can get just about anybody in your office up to an 80% proficiency in whatever they're lacking, right? So if they're already a great writer, it's not going to help them that much. It's maybe going to get them to an 85 or a 90. But if you're a terrible writer, it's going to get you from a 20% to an 80% pretty quick. And if you spend the time here building a brand voice reference, having the company understand your mission and your vision and your core values and all of those things, it's going to get that 80% for everyone up to a 90, because it's going to help everyone in your company, even good writers, understand that they need to write in a manner that befits the company in a certain way. And so this piece to me is a huge piece of the culture shift. And I've talked to several businesses where I'm like, are you sure your culture is ready for this? Are you sure that your team is ready for this? Because it is a shift in culture in how things are getting done. And it's something that I'm really excited about. So we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but I love this piece of it.
Yeah, that is definitely the dressing. I mean, to me, that's the frosting. It's like if you go to a bakery, you have to decide what kind of cake you're going to have. What's your AI going to look like? It's going to be a cheesecake, or you're going to be one of those people that's a fruitcake because you decided not to go ahead and do it the right way. And if you notice, they don't keep fruitcakes there in the bakery aisle. They put them off to the side, so everybody just picks them up as they're leaving the store and says them to people they don't like. You want to make sure that you put the frosting on here as something that you're proud of and represents your brand.
So here's a little bit about our two programs that we're launching to our internal clients. And if either one of these two sound interesting, please reach out to me or Drew, and we can help you guys get to where you want to go in your organization if we're a good fit to work together. So the first is our kind of executive launch or leadership launch. And some of the key pieces of this are what it doesn't do. It's not going to do data governance in your organization. We're not going to go through all your files. We're not going to go through all your folders. So you really do need to make sure that everyone that you're going to give Copilot to on this platform can see everything in your files and folders. If you have sensitive data somewhere in your organization, you are at risk, and we tell the clients up front, like, hey, you need to comb through your data and find anything that's sensitive that these people can't see, because that's not a part of this program. And so it's up to 10 people. We are going to spend a lot of time getting Copilot to be functional for you and getting the brand voice aligned, and tracking adoption and use in your organization, because we do want to get Copilot into leaders' hands as soon as possible. Our goal for 2026 is a high percent of all the leaders in all of our organizations to have Copilot licenses and to be using it effectively. And that's our job, is to help them understand how to use it and make sure that their environments are prepared for success. Uh, and then the second package is where we do some data governance, and we are going to help you come up with tags and compliance, and we're going to do it with ready-made templates, though. We're not going to comb through all your data and help you organize it. We have some AI tools that can help you with that, but we're going to create the new world that AI is going to use going forward. And so it does in this package, it's up to you, the client, to start moving the data into the new compliant, trained, ready, secure environments. So these are our two packages. And if you have any questions about them, you definitely reach out to Drew or I, and we can run compliance scans to see where you sit security wise, let you know how prepared you are, what the lift is going to take to get one of these rolled out. But this is our mission for 2026 is to roll these out to existing clients and then find new clients that need this type of work. So,
Yeah, one
good.
comment about that real quick, Mike. The second one's very robust. That first one was Michael's brainchild. That is something that after looking at this holistically, saying, hey, there's a lot to this. Michael wanted to take a step back and put AI opportunity and Copilot opportunity in the hands of those that would get use out of it and get marked usage and an idea to see what the value it brings to them right out of the gate. So that's something for everybody. That's what separates amshot from a lot of other providers out there is we're willing to take this journey with you, but really start in the infancy phases of this and show you real-time results of what you're getting from your investment. ROI is key on this. That's where we're seeing a lot of customers lose is on the ROI turnaround, and that's where we're going to separate ourselves. So just wanted to
Yeah.
make that point.
Yeah, I just am so excited about the transformation of the conversations we're going to be having with our clients, where we're doing analysis and we're saying like, hey, these people are using this types of data. Let's build an agent to help these people in this one process. And if you once you enable Copilot in the environment, then we can start to see this information. We can start to help give the clients feedback to provide this magic that IT can do for people, help them do more with less. And that's technology, right? Like a wheel, a lever, a fulcrum. This is just another technology, and it's supposed to have an ROI. It's supposed to deliver value. And if you aren't measuring it and tracking it and looking at it, you're just guessing. And I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a small business owner, and so my gut is right a lot, but I do love good data and I love good insights. And I love when partners like law firms or our partners, finance partners, banking partners, I love when they can bring me good data so that I don't have to just trust my gut. I can know I'm making a good decision. And so, super valuable what
Yep.
we're going to be bringing to people. So, a little bit about, we do have these tailored adoption strategies. Uh, we want you to let us customize for you, and we can do that. We do have minimum requirements, and we do have edges. So we're not going to just do whatever you say. We're going to have you make good decisions so that you can maximize your investment. And so just email us if you're a current client. You can put a ticket in, and we'll get it. We want to have these discussions. These are the discussions I'm super excited about having with my clients and potential clients.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you there. One thing I want to mention though is, we talk about compliance, and there's a lot of people out there right now saying, "Oh, I'm not any kind of compliance." I'm here to tell you, you are. Okay, if you're using a bank, if you've got employees, if you've got benefits, if you've got these things, then there are requirements for you to have, in transit encrypted information, at rest encrypted information, requirements for you to have immutable data. These requirements are in place. You're just not following them, aware that they're there. Rest assured, if you do ever suffer a breach, you'll find out very quickly because those same people I'm referring to will want letters from your IT provider showing that now you have the protections in place to mitigate these breaches. So that's probably one of the biggest misnomers out there. Oh, that doesn't really affect me. It does. You just don't know about it
Yeah, I like kind of compliant. What?
yet.
Yeah, it is such a it's a Wild West kind of situation because the idea of compliance and the idea of being healthy, having cyber insurance, all these things, they seemed like chores for everyone. For us, hey, you got to get CMMC level 2 or whatever you have to work on. like these are kind of arduous tasks, but doing them well, setting things up well, you get the most ROI. And there is a positive business impact to going to the compliance gym every week
Mm-hmm.
and
There is.
staying on top of it. This is the only way to get where people want to go. So I do see we've got a couple questions. Becca, tell us all about it.
Okay, yes. So it looks like our questions kind of go together. So it says HR is a common first AI project, and it looks a lot of calendars. Part of
I
the
can't,
calendar.
Becca, you're breaking up. I cannot hear you very well, but I see the question. So I've got the question pulled up. So it's HR is a common first AI project, and it makes a lot of sense. A place to check for company policies, benefits, calendars, etc. Part of the foundation of your company voice. It sounds perfect until the new hire starts asking what his manager and the CEO salaries are. Wait, you mean that's not public? He's got a great, so that's from Bryant Smallwood. That's a great question. And you hit the nail right on the head. If your AI hasn't been trained on a certain set of data and it doesn't report sensitive questions that are out of line to anyone, it might just answer, hey, this is the CEO's salary. This is your manager's salary. And so you want it to know exactly what it needs to know. You want that agent to only know what it needs to know, not to get creative and search the internet. You want it to report any questions that are sensitive to the manager and tell the person, hey, this is the proper avenue for a question like that. Here is your HR consultant's email address. Here's what you should do. But the benefit is on the front side, right? Like, hey, do we get off the Friday this year after Christmas? Like, people in my office are asking other people in the office that question now, or they were until we built our HR agent. And then now they don't have to, right? They don't have to go to Jody, the president of amshot, and say, hey, what's that benefit guy's name again? The guy that had the Aflac duck pins. You can just ask, hey, ours is HR Ed. You can ask HR Ed, hey, HR Ed, what's the Aflac benefit contact information? And am I eligible for it anytime this year? And it'll answer, yes, this is the HR contact information, and you can sign up for it anytime that you want. And so we're just reducing noise in your environment with a simple agent like that. HR handbook. Hey, can I wear flip-flops to the office on, a hot sunny day? No, you can't. Hunter probably would be doing that. Just kidding, Hunter. Don't need to throw you under the bus. But these simple policies, that's a great way to reduce noise, improve culture in the office.
Yeah. I think parental guidance, if you're setting up an Amazon account for your kid, you don't want them to have access to everything rated PG and R and all that other stuff. And this is the same thing. It's just that sandbox of data they need to have access to, and just realize that there's going to be questions asked that'll be shocking to you. You're going to have people that misrepresent their resumes. They're not going to Google anymore. They're going to your chat GPT, and they may be putting company data in there, which is known as shadow AI. So all things you need to take in consideration as part of this.
Yeah. And you do need to watch shadow AI. It's the sooner you can build out a corporate Copilot presence and then lock out other agents, other AI tools from your employee database, you're reducing that risk of your sensitive data being free training fodder for other models. So we did have a follow-up to that question. It says, how do you help configure Copilot with the scenario that was just mentioned, the HR scenario? So Copilot has Copilot Studio, where you build these agents. You get to create the prompts, how they are, how they speak, how they act. And so when we did ours, we actually worked with our HR consulting company, YHR, and I asked him a series of questions. And I asked him questions about how should an agent respond? What should their tone be? How should they work? And I trained the AI agent on those things. That's the voice and the context. I also trained the agent on our mission, our core values, our company voice, something that our marketing company came up with. how we speak. And so this agent has a personality that mirrors the consulting firm's requirements and HR's amshot's requirements. And then you take that, plus you upload to a captive space that, Jody has access to, the president, she runs HR, that has the captive data. And so it knows exactly the contact information that we can give out, who is responsible for what. It has copies of all of the available policies for our benefits packages in there captively that no one else can go look at them, but the AI agent is trained on them. And then a copy of our handbook, of course, so that it knows that information is the context of how it should respond and act. And then we also put in some, red flag questions. If someone asks something like this, you are required as an HR representative to notify leadership inside amshot, so that, if someone asks something that is sensitive and, has some litigation risk to it, it's going to notify, and it's going to tell the person like, hey, I did have to notify, what you just mentioned violates federal employment law. And so, HR has been notified. And, those are the things that you train it on. And that's why it is a good set of data to go with, because it really is kind of fixed, and you can teach it and it won't get creative. And so if you think of that laser focus of our HR ed agent, then you can expand that to other areas of your company. So if you want to have like a law clerk that knows that it's an agent that's trained up on all of your case file data from all of your cases and all of the depositions you've done over the last 30 years, you have to make all that data as clear and as concise and as organized as we made that HR data. And so you can see, if it needs to be an expert on that much information, it's going to take a little bit of time to organize it and get it ready to deliver prompt, accurate responses that are valuable to the person asking the question. So great questions, Bryant. I really appreciate those. All right, looks like we've got one in chat too. So how can amshot help make sure Copilot isn't referencing old and irrelevant information when prompting it? So this is a great question, and this is the hard part of managing your information, and why our Copilot, leadership launch is that type of product, because there is sensitive information. Now, IT, for the last 30 years, the 20 years that I've been involved, at least, our job has been to create buckets for people to put things. And that's our job, is to say, keep your HR data in this HR folder. Keep your finance information in this finance folder. And we will make sure that only the people that can see HR, and only the people who can see finance, can see finance. And we're going to do a good job at that. And we still are doing that. We've still done that. Our clients, they're managing their data, they're putting things places. The problem with Copilot is that now, if someone has misplaced something, if someone has accidentally shared a folder in, their own personal OneDrive with the company, and it contains sensitive information, now anyone that has Copilot can see that sensitive information. Yeah. And so it's a risky business doing that, just turning Copilot on willy-nilly. And so that's why you need to have a targeted approach to who you roll it out to, what those expectations are. And the better your hygiene has been going into this, the better the outcome. The asking and prompting is going to know what it knows. And so you have to trust those first people that you launch this data out for. And we can help. And there are AI tools that we have that can search your data for credit card numbers and bank account numbers and social security numbers, so that we can help you find that data and make sure it's in the right place. But it is risky. We can't make sure that it's not referencing old and irrelevant information.
If the information's not there.
Yeah, right.
That's it.
It is and that's our second, our rapid launch for a whole company. It is where we can start to do that. and start to say, hey, move your data into this area that is curated and is organized and has retention policies applied to it. And you've gotten rid of your old information. And it's a journey. So yeah, I hope I answered your question, Ian. It's definitely a journey, but yeah, go ahead, Drew. Anything to
Well,
add to
and
that?
it doesn't stop. I mean, I think one thing that separates us, probably more than anything else from a lot of our peers and people that have similar services is we have a technology alignment manager. And that alignment manager is going back and looking at changes made to the environment, something like this, for example. If we see data that's put into a folder or a file, or there was, a request to move something. And these are these little identifiers that we'll be doing as part of these assessments, not only to make sure the Copilot is performing as expected, but these are areas where we'll go back and check after the fact, so that we can make sure. So if there's something like this happens, it's a teachable moment. Because probably, it happening on a regular basis by a broken people process is probably one of the biggest things that you see that cause the misuse of data. And it's having the wherewithal to have a team that is, looking at this, not only, future state, but going back and looking after the fact, and using an alignment manager to compare and contrast changes in the environment, that've been requested. So there's a lot to this, undoubtedly. But to answer it more succinctly, there's no prompt you should be able to make that should be able to access data that we've otherwise separated, sandboxed, or removed from access.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and mark our 2 questions is done. And I don't think we have any more. So show of hands or claps or however you want to participate. Let me know if anybody wants to watch a short live demo of our AI agent.
Yes, please.
Okay, cool. Before I do that, before I quit sharing my screen, we did talk about our technology alignment advisor. All right, we've got a couple of people raising their hands, so that's cool. Our next webinar, Drew's going to join me again, and Hunter, if he's around and he doesn't get caught with those flip flops on. He is our technology alignment manager, and he is the voted most likely to attend our clients' Christmas parties because he knows the clients day in, day out better than anybody. Drew and I's job is to understand leadership, direction, strategy of companies. Hunter really is there understanding what mid-level managers are trying to accomplish. And this is really where AI is going to become super powered in the coming years, is Hunter's level of interaction with clients and escalating that and those conversations and that information. So snap that QR code. We'll share it in an email as well. But I'm going to go up. We've got one more question. So no, the question is this Copilot, or does Copilot have a memory? And that means, is it gonna like hallucinate something old that it had? And so no, the agents that you build, if you give them a captive data set, you would have to annually update any policies. So if you update your employee manual with Copilot, will it have a memory of the previous policies? The answer is no. It would only reference the most current copy of the policy. And one thing you can do is you can keep the age of chats to be lower in these agents that you're building. One thing I see a lot of people doing is having a conversation with a GPT or a Copilot that lasts weeks or months even. And I would do that a while, up until about a year ago. I wouldn't train an agent and keep it updating. I would count on its memory. And so as you get these models and make them more specific to tailored tasks, you do want to limit the memory they've got, limit the amount of time a conversation can go on. Interesting information there. Thank you, Bryant. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. That is the wrong button. I almost ended the entire webinar for everyone. Had to make everyone sad. Okay, so I'm going to reshare. And so this is a captive agent like our HR agent that I was talking about earlier. But this one's all about marketing. So marketing and branding for amshot. And so let's see if I can't collapse this a little. Okay. And if it doesn't work, it's not my fault. It's just a live demo. So that's just what can happen on stage sometimes. All right. Okay. So this is a Teams channel inside of amshot. And so we are talking about content. We are scheduling webinars and working on things here. So I'm going to say, what's something that we might want? Christmas email to clients. I can say, hey, and our marketing agent is at Ogilvy. And so and this is our second version of it. So I can say, hey, Ogilvy 2.0, let's write an email to all our clients talking about. So I hit post, and you guys might be like, hey, that doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Like I can ask ChatGPT to do stuff. And so the interesting part with having this in a Teams channel is that everyone in the marketing channel sees this conversation as it's happening, and other people can reply. And so Becca or Janelle, somebody ask it to throw in at least one dad joke. There we go. Okay. So Janelle has asked it to throw in a dad joke. So here's an updated email with a dad joke sprinkled in for a little extra warmth and personality. And so you can see this is a whole nother layer of collaboration that is exciting, right? This makes this more exciting and dynamic for us to collaborate on inside of Teams. And this is just one agent. It knows, it knows all of our marketing, it knows our style, knows our vibe, ideal client profiles. It's really a smart person or smart intelligence that we are managing, and we're managing it for amshot. We're coming up with versions. We're giving feedback and updating this agent. Does anybody else have any questions they want me to ask Ogilvy? Okay, so here we got it came up with some suggestions, right? A call to action for the email. Great suggestion, Ogilvy. And then Janelle added that, said, hey, do that, add that to this. And then now we've got a great email that we can send to our clients, wishing them Merry Christmas. And then it has like a booking link in it for us. So how cool is that? You can imagine, other agents we've built. We've got a ticket agent that does ticket analysis for clients. We have a cyber response agent that helps us do cyber response in different areas of the company. We, of course, have higher ed. I've got an executive coach that I built that knows my DISC personality style. It knows the ENF, the Enneagrams of everyone on the leadership team and our org chart. And so the more you feed these, the more they can help you. And by putting them into teams and having them be available, you really make this, get this to the next level of collaboration. You can have these agents automatically replying to things. And so if we wanted to have a form on the website that had, like 15 fields in it, and, we wanted people to be required to put the data in, well, it's kind of frustrating if the person's like, I don't want to, and they don't hit send, right? Just make all the fields optional and then have the agent reply back in the email and say, hey, thanks for emailing us. We really appreciate that. It sounds like you're doing really blah, 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 blah. And Ogilvy can help move them down the funnel by communicating, emailing back and forth with the potential client to finish gathering that information that we needed in that initial form without them, stopping. And it can still tell us, right? Like, hey, they filled out all these fields but one. You might need to call them. I sent them an email. And so these agents trained on processes can really transform the amount of time people are spending on tedious work. A couple of weeks ago, I helped one of our clients. They were doing these audit response emails, and it would take their people, hours to do. And I had helped build an agent that could analyze their data, draft a response in the format they wanted, and do a lot of that work for them and shrink it from 20 hours to 3. And it's still a work in progress, but that is so valuable to take that tedious work and shrink it down in time. Any other questions or comments or thoughts on Ogilvy or requests. Probably should do audience requests for AI agents. If anybody watches the show, the morning show on Apple TV, you will know why you shouldn't let your AI agents just start going wild. You might get fired. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Drew, thank you so much as always for being here. I appreciate all your feedback and conversation. So everybody, we'll see you in 2 weeks at our next webinar. Have a great rest of your day.